Hello. This is a follow-up video on the Sands of Time with Triggerbots build. And so let's hop into a map here, and we'll talk about where I've got the build so far and how it's looking. Fair warning, the build's definitely not fully polished yet by any means, but I wanted to make this video now because I'm planning on a new build actually, so I don't think I'm going to take it too much farther. But currently, in short, the trick I feel is using cooldown skills. So like the ball lightning here, because those extra mirage casts aren't affected by the cooldown, so you can get way more casts for each ball lightning than you normally would. Now, you might notice this build's using arc. I'm having a good time using using arc of oscillating with the new chain, greater chain support, which gives it a nice boost. And so yeah, can easily do T16s. I've got 2 of the Void Stones, and I've been doing some mapping here and there. The big weakness with the way I put this together at the moment is defensively, I just sort of decided to ignore physical damage, and that doesn't work out sometimes. Another thing I've been testing out here is the new Orbistorms. It's alright. It's not really great for clearing, but it is pretty good for like single target stuff. Because for clear, it'll bounce around and you'll lose track of it. But for single target, it'll stay in one spot. And he'll get some just extra hits on the boss. So yeah, this is what it looks like in a map. For single target stuff, curse, ball lightning. It is very much a lots of buttons build. So this guy's kind of annoying. But yeah, it scales with buttons. At least the way it is at the moment. Because I went CI, I probably went CI way too early, but I was getting annoyed by chaos damage. But yeah, that's what it looks like in a map. And let's hop out of here and talk a little more about some of the interactions and whatnot on how it's working. So my current setup, and this is only still a 5 link, there's still lots of room to go, but like I said, I'm moving on to something new. Using the arc of oscillating with greater chain. The reason to use arc of oscillating is that more damage with hits for each remaining chain. It gets a nice boost from the new support here. And then just crit damage, arcane surge. Been using that at all my skills, and lightning pen. The real star though, to actually, I think the best way to build around this would be focusing more on something like ball lightning with the cooldown, since then you can get way more balls all at once and only 1 cooldown cost. So like for each cooldown tick you get 4 balls summoned. So I'm running around clearing with arc, but I can just place down 1 ball and it clears just as well, and it's essentially only a 3 link because I'm using this for +1 cooldown. So yeah, otherwise this particular build went assassin for crit scaling, so that's helping the damage a lot, using dagger like this to get crit chance. The spell daggers are actually pretty easy to get. They're not too hard to come around by. I started off with this dagger here, which literally just has cast speed and crit chance, and that's it. Doesn't do anything else. The other stats are worthless. And then upgraded to this, lost a little cast speed. We got the +1, and then the rest of the gear is just trying to get ES for going CI there. Another fun thing I added in is Choir of the Storm. I've never done anything with this unique before, and it helps out a little bit. I don't think it's super game-changing by any means, but it's cool to have a little extra trigger. Then the rest of the gear is nothing special, just stuff to finish off resists, and using this to get a little extra energy shield. And like flasks, I haven't even touched flasks, so I'm using this flask as the only auto flask to help with stun, and that's all that's going on with it. So, like I said, fair warning, this build is not fully polished or fully done, but I'm happy enough with it, and it's done enough to progress my Atlas to the point where I've got enough money to tinker with some other things. Alright, let's take a quick look at the skill tree I've got going on. I wouldn't recommend following this to a T. The main things are getting out of Assassin, getting that base crit chance from the dagger, and power charge generation is nice. This node's pretty handy. Like, when it works, and it's nice to have. But unfortunately, this node doesn't do too much for you because basically crit capped. So the Assassin setup definitely gives you that crit damage, which is nice. But I think, like I was been saying, the ball lightning on Sabo is probably going to be a better play overall. The rest of the tree, really just going for energy shield and cast speed. That's about it. Getting power charges in the power charge nodes, getting mana nodes, and cast speed over here. A little bit of aura, and these dual wheel nodes are quite handy. The dual wheel mastery is quite nice since I've got a dagger and a, scepter. So that's quite efficient point there. And getting mostly here though for the cast speed increases. And like over here, like this tail to get spell suppression. This is left over from when I was playing Spark and using the Pierce, right? So this is pretty inefficient when I actually do this. I do need the dex for the greater chain though, so it's hanging out. And yeah, so nothing too crazy in the tree. So I wouldn't, follow this to a T by any means, but just give you an idea of what's going on to get to kind of comfy T16 level. So, speaking of other things with the unique itself, I would say check out PoE for like actual better builds that are starting to pop up on the site. And like I said, I think Ball Lightning's probably the better way to go. And with that, you do want to go Saboteur to get the cooldown reduction, and then you get the Triggerbots for free. You can get the blind node and actually have some real defense besides just wish for defense. And so yeah, there's some builds starting to pop up that are looking pretty good, so highly recommend checking those out for reference. So one final thought, I was going through all the comments and I noticed a comment that mentioned Black Zenith, and that caught my attention. So I think there is some interesting potential there with Black Zenith. You definitely would want to go Sabo to get some of the cooldown to work, but for example, with projectile skills like this, and then you could give it a second cooldown like this, you do still have a pretty hefty cooldown to deal with, but since all the mirages override that cooldown, there could be something there with enough cooldown recovery and that sort of stuff, right? You get all these extra projectiles and you get all the extra damage, so could be something tasty there with the Black Zenith, though you do have to work around the bigger cooldown with this and whatnot. And Spark is pretty hilarious because any projectile with a duration is not going to be any good. Like that. That's just hilarious. So yeah, check out Sands of Time, pretty fun to play with. Check out Black Zenith, having a good time with that. And yeah, thanks for all the comments, and thanks for watching.